And did I speak to your heart or did I speak only to your head? Are you convinced because you think that I'm right, or are you convinced because you feel deep inside that there is an aspiration that you want to accomplish?
Welcome to the Coaching Revealed podcast series. I'm one of your hosts, Austin Matzelle. In today's episode, I'm joined by fellow podcast host, Emily Terrani, as we interview Guila Clara Kessous, a UNESCO Artist for Peace and executive coach. Guila uses theatrical techniques to enhance corporate communication. From theater to earning a PhD, she has honed her interpersonal strengths and theatrical expertise to assist decision makers in the private and public sectors with positive leadership issues. In this interview, Guila breaks down some of the models and techniques she uses, including situational intelligence, the SPIRE model, and the 5 pillars of communication. Guila's path into theater was fueled by her internal desire to help people express themselves and create interpersonal understanding. Through this drive, she began working as a coach to help people with their body awareness, positive communication, and rehearsing reality. As a coach, Guila utilizes theater techniques such as situational intelligence. She defines situational intelligence as being similar to improvisational intelligence, which helps individuals build resilience to the unexpected by practicing how to navigate various scenarios. Guila also utilizes the SPIRE model, which encompasses well-being from 5 places, including spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional. Guila details how she helps clients navigate self-assessment in these areas and potential additional guidance they may need in areas, depending on their functioning. Lastly, Guila, Emily, and myself discuss the 5 pillars of communication, which can help coaches know what tools and advice they can bring to their clients. These 5 pillars include anchoring, gestures, eye contact, voice, and silence. This episode is full of tips and wisdom from the theater straight to your coaching practice. Thank you for tuning into Coaching Revealed. Let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Coaching Revealed. And today I'm joined with my co-host, Emily Terrani, and we are interviewing an IOC member, Guila Clara Kessous. And Guila is a UNESCO Artist for Peace and an executive coach using theatrical techniques to enhance corporate communication and help heal those who have suffered from prior trauma. And as a recipient of an executive MBA from Essex Business School, she has been coaching executive committees, senior executives, and managers for more than 15 years in the context of leading change. And she has coached more than 500 leaders in France and abroad in both private and public sectors on positive leadership issues. Following a PhD at Boston University under the direction of Nobel Peace Prize winner Elie Wiesel, she was invited to teach a Harvard class on theater and human rights. There she met Professor Tal Ben-Shahar, a specialist in positive psychology, and Professor William Ury, a specialist in negotiation, who encouraged her to become a coach using role-playing techniques. From there, Guila became a certified ICC coach with a specialization in negotiation and executive communication from Harvard University. Guila, it's so wonderful to have you here with us today, and I'd love to hear just, in your own words, what has been your journey into coaching.
So thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. As you said it, really my journey has been a long way, coming from performance, from an artistic theatrical point of view, to performance from a profit and humanitarian point of view. So I would say that this notion of theater is very important to me, trying to have people better get conscious to what is otherness, how to better communicate, how to also better manage your own body in the communication, how to try to find this space where we agree not to agree, as we say in negotiation. So coming from the world of performance in France, I've done the French Conservatory, which is this French art academy in the theater as a performer. So that's only after that I realized that theater could be very helpful to help others. And so I got very interested into art therapy and drama therapy, which is basically a way to use theater as a technique to heal people who have suffered from trauma, helping them to do the catharsis of what they went through. So putting words onto their own suffering. And then little by little, I was passionate about how to work with theater, with survivors of genocides. And then after an MBA in cultural production, I decided to do a PhD with Elie Wiesel, the wonderful Nobel Prize, who worked as a Shoah survivor, who was also telling me that theater helped him and that he wrote many theater plays in order to get this resilience that is necessary when you go through trauma. After traveling, working in Rwanda, working in Congo, those people who have suffered, especially women, for sexual harassment, working with Dr. Mukwege. So Harvard University invited me to teach this class at the Kennedy School, Theater and Human Rights. And then that's at Harvard University that I had the chance to meet those professors, Tal Ben-Shahar in positive psychology, William Ury in negotiation, who really told me that, young lady, if you really want to have a social transformation, you not only need to speak to people who have been burned in life, through victims or survivors, you need to speak with decision makers. You need to do coaching with your theater techniques, and you will see that things will really get to this noble and positive change that you want to see in the world. And that's how I became a coach. So I would say that all along my career, theater was really my way to express myself and help others to express themselves in order to create better understanding, I would say.
Wow, what an interesting and unique background and journey to coaching. I would love to hear more about how you incorporate the theater work and all the other work that you do into your coaching work. And as you know, we're focused around positive psychology too. And we chatted before this about how all of your work is focused on positive psychology. So can you just tell us how you thread those all together?
Yes, the notion of thread is excellent, because it is true that it has to be also a creative process once you have all the balls that you want to juggle with. And I think this is what every single coach is doing, trying to understand what is my DNA, what are the tools that I would like to develop within my coaches in order for that to be a unique coaching. It's not only the fact of having a good listening, but it's also how can I thread my tools in order for that to become a unique methodology. As for me, the way that I'm using theater will be, I would say, in three different directions. The first, as I said earlier, is how am I conscious of my body? When you are an actor on stage, every single move, every single facial expressions, every single gestures is meaningful. When you are doing coaching, you need to have the coachee being more conscious about this importance of the body, whether you're doing life coaching or professional coaching. And of course, I would define myself more as a professional coach since I'm working with CEOs and C-suites. So the first thing is really, how can I have a better conscious of my body while I'm talking? What do other people see of myself? Top managers who are telling me, oh, please don't use video, don't use the camera. I hate to see myself. I hate to see my face. And when it's like that, I'm always telling them, well, if you hate to see your face, well, share the suffering of showing your face to everyone around you. And they're laughing and then they understand. So the first thing is about your image, about the conscious of your body, about how can I have a diagnosis of my personal communication style. So this is one side where theater could be very interesting in order to manage myself. The second, I would say, approach using theater in positive psychology will be how can I be more conscious about the value of each word that I'm saying in order to understand that a word will have a more positive resonance than another. This is something very interesting because the dream of all coaches is to create an impact, better impact. Well, in fact, you will not have a better impact if you're not conscious of the values of the words that you're saying. And for this, the notion of positive communication is very interesting. If you want to mobilize, if you want to create followership, you need to find the proper language that will really go directly to the heart of the other and not only to the mind. So sometimes I see that managers are very, down to earth and very factual and very data oriented, which is good, of course. But sometimes teams don't need that. And especially right now, what we see in coaching is that there are a lot of mental suffering. So talking from a heart to heart, language, using emotions, this will be very interesting. And theater can be a dimension of rehearsing those words with, of course, someone that you trust in order to see, okay, after me doing my speech, what do you have in mind? Do you have positive words that you keep in your mind? What do you remember? Am I clear? And did I speak to your heart or did I speak only to your head? Are you convinced because you think that I'm right? Or are you convinced because you feel deep inside that there is an aspiration that you want to accomplish following me? So this is very interesting theater-wise, and I would say more on the writing dimension, more on the script dimension, in order to have a better conscious of the words that comes out to your mouth. So that's the second dimension. And the third dimension is, of course, the negotiation, the communication, the obstructive behavior management. A lot of people ask me in my coaching how to handle passive people, aggressive people, manipulative people, and these are role games. We are trying. Sometimes my coachee, they are playing their own role and I'm playing the person who is aggressive or passive or manipulative. Sometimes we switch. So this dimension of rehearsing reality is something extremely important when it comes to theater. So again, I would say the body dimension is something that theater can bring. The notion of positive communication that is directly linked to positive psychology is also directly linked to theater. And the third is how to manage difficult behavior because of the dimension of rehearsing reality.
That's really interesting. It sounds to me like you're able to incorporate a lot of creativity. So these are, deep things that people need to work through, and you're able to use the theater techniques in a way that get them out of their comfort zone. Can you speak to that a little bit? Ready to advance your coaching practice? Join the Institute of Coaching and tap into the world's leading resource for coaching science and professional development. With over 4,000 members across 130 countries, the IOC offers invaluable networking opportunities with an elite global coaching community and innovative learning to broaden your knowledge and keep you at the forefront of coaching best practices. Engage in cutting-edge learning events with world-renowned coaching scholars, from webinars and seminars to discussion groups, research projects, and more. Try any membership free for 30 days. Use promo code IOC Podcast and visit instituteofcoaching.org/join to get started.
This is very true. And when you're talking about creativity, some people sometimes don't know exactly what they're talking about. But I would say that creativity is also the basis of positive psychology, because positive psychology is making us think differently, is making us approaching logic differently, is making us aspire to a different way from health point of view. In positive psychology, you are switching the why are you sick? Why do you have this problem? To how can we work better together? So it's really a way to transform the why into the how. The why only is the psychology point of view, but the how is the positive psychology point of view. And the creativity, when you say that it's really linked to theater, you're right, because theater is the place where you can explore any type of scenarios. And I know that, for example, in negotiation, this is crucial when you're dealing with the other, trying to imagine multiple scenarios. And this is where creativity comes from. Because creativity, I like to basically define creativity with the CQFD notion. CQFD, C is no censorship. The Q is quantity, more important than quality. F is also fun. This needs to really force you to have a little smile, on your face. And of course, the D is a way to disrupt reality. So basically, creativity is, for me, going back to the CQFD, which is, again, no censorship, quantity over quality, F for fun, and D for disruptive. And you see that all those dimensions are scenic dimension, especially when it comes to something that coachee ask me more and more. I would say the new trend of coaching right now is what we're calling situational intelligence. Because of the unexpected, because of COVID, because of conflict, we see in terms of management people who really have to manage something unmanageable because it's unexpected. It's really coming without being planned. And situational intelligence is basically the intelligence of improvisation. How can I handle the what if? Well, by muscling this capacity you may have and twisting into, of course, positive psychology, you will see that you can even imagine scenarios that will, of course, not arrive, but will help you to have better ways to handle it when something unexpected will arise.
I love it so much also because within my own personal life, I've been doing a level of improv as well. And so I think it's fascinating to see how much you have to lose this notion of trying to hold on to controlling what's happening when you're truly working on improvisation. It sounds like that's something that you're definitely alluding to within the situational intelligence, dealing with uncertainty and not feeling like you exactly know what's happening, but being willing to be flexible to some degree. When you're utilizing this technique and you're having a background in theater and also positive psychology, how does that look for you with helping clients utilize, an improv technique or a theater technique to address their problem that they might say this is a real life problem as opposed to a theater problem?
As I said, you need to find a partner, which would be someone that you trust. It could be a friend, it could be a coach. Usually this is what I offer. And then you will write scenarios. But sometimes, and that's the power of theater, sometimes you take, let's say that you have a problem that would be a relationship problem with one colleague, trying to think about playing the other. Let's say that you are trying to become the other, to be in someone else's shoes, but not only someone else's shoes. And I'm calling that the positive interview. So the positive interview, you're yourself, and you say that you will interview the person you have a problem with. Let's say that I have a problem with Stephanie, and Stephanie, she is really not giving me the information that I need in order to complete a project. So I will say, okay, Stephanie, I know that you know Guila, me, very well. What do you think of her? And so you yourself will answer like Stephanie and say, yes, it's true. I know her for more than 6 years now. And then you can ask her, okay, do you appreciate her? Yes, I appreciate her, even if I think that the project she's working on right now might not be the best for all the collective. Okay, so could you tell me, Stephanie, why do you think the project is not the best? This project is interesting on her side, but for my entity, it will come and block some of the results that I might have. And little by little, by having the power of putting yourself into someone else's head, you will see, and this is what improv is fantastic for, you will see that you will get some very precious information that you need to take when you will see Stephanie. And when you will talk to her saying, I know that this project might interfere with some profits or some result that you're trying to achieve with your entity. This is what I'm doing. And because you're rehearsing so much, I always say this is like a giant coaching session should be a giant laboratory. So because you're rehearsing so much with the coach, when you come in front of Stephanie, the fear, I'm not saying completely goes out, but a good level of fear goes out because it feels familiar. It feels that, oh, but I already spoke to Stephanie. I already think of what she think. I already take the time to respect her by putting myself into her shoes. So, and trying to understand, okay, what does she say to me? How can I help her? How can we find a way to agree to disagree? This is what I was saying, trying to find a beautiful place for us to get along because we have to work. And this is also another very important notion of positive psychology, which is what we're calling interdependency. We don't want to create dependency, of course. I don't want Stephanie to be dependent on me doing my project or not. So we will create interdependency. I need her, she needs me, because we have to work together. So creating this space where we agree to disagree is a matter of survival for us. We cannot basically have the time or the space to be antagonistic. And so that's how theater could be very good, because it's basically the drama de-dramatize the real life, because you pretend that suddenly real life will feel a little bit more familiar because you did this shortcut with fiction.
With that notion of it's been rehearsed before, you're helping break down some of those fears that the client may initially have. How do you, or what type of ways are you infusing theater and positive psychology into the coaching engagement? Is it something that happens session by session with little exercises or explorations into theater, or is it an overall theme that really, is a big part of the coaching engagement?
So what you need to know is that people come. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on LinkedIn. So people come to me because they really want to work with me. They have lots of pain to find me. And that's why I'm so glad that you give me this opportunity to discuss about my techniques. So basically, they find me because of theater. And at the same time, this is like confronting themselves with the worst fear they have. So this is very ambivalent. And so when they come to me, what I'm doing is having sessions, 2-hour sessions, usually once per month, a minimum of 6 to 10, depending on the level of the person and how ready the person is to explore this notion of theater. And so basically for these 2 hours, we always have one part that will be setting the objective. Each session is objective of the session. And then, of course, if we have time, come back to the last session to see what has been good or bad regarding the tool that was seen before. Then a theoretical tools that will be present, let's say for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whether it's come from strategy, sociogram, whether it could be communication, whether it could be negotiation, whether it could be, I would say, something that will be more focused on emotional intelligence. And then after this theoretical tool, always the equivalent for in positive psychology tool. There will be the role play. So usually I videotape the person, whether it's a presentation after a diagnosis of style of communication, whether it's a role game. So we're trying to address to someone particularly. And then, of course, we'll come back to question and answer at the end. I'm going to give you specific tools that I'm using, for example, in positive psychology, for that to be more concrete for you. So I'm working a lot with the SPIRE that Tal Ben-Shahar has created, that is really considering the whole being. Again, I mentioned the body, but the body is not the only thing that people have problem with. The notion of whole being, thinking that I'm not only an intellect, I'm not only a brain, but I'm an entire body, soul, and with different dimension to be taken, is very interesting. So Tal Ben-Shahar, when we were in class at Harvard University, was doing this exercise that is called SPIRE, S-P-I-R-E, like a spire, in order to check the temperature of the whole being. Basically, if you're taking the 5 dimension of SPIRE, you will be sure that you can function efficiently. Basically, the SPIRE is S for spiritual. So Tal Ben-Shahar is asking us to give us a grade between 0 to 5. 5 being the best and 0 being the lowest. How do you feel today if you're taking 20 seconds to think? How do you feel spiritually speaking? And we are not talking about religion here. Spiritual is really meaning, is really the place I have right now, here and now. Do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel that I match a certain sense of purpose? Do I have a goal? Am I feeling right at the right place? So this is the S of spiritual that you need. The second is P, and the P is physical, the physical dimension. How, if I'm taking 20 seconds, how do I feel? Am I feeling okay? Or, you know what, this suffering that I have in my shoulder after the tennis match that I've done last Sunday, well, you know what, I felt it right after the match, but I didn't want to take care about it. But if I'm taking 20 seconds now, it aches. It aches again. It says something to me. So I need to put a grade between 0 to 5. That's the third letter. The I is intellectual. If I'm taking 20 seconds, am I learning something? Am I still hydrated, intellectually speaking? Am I curious? Do I want to learn things? Or am I in a routine in my work, in my jobs, always the same thing? I'm feeling dry within myself. So this intellectual dimension is very important. The R of SPIRE is relational. Do I feel well surrounded? Do I feel I have friends, my family? So these are, again, to be grade from 0 to 5. And the last is the E, emotional. And we know, of course, that there is no negative emotion, no positive emotion. It's only the way you feel the emotions, since they are so necessary in our body. When I'm taking 20 seconds, do I suddenly see some pictures of people who died that I loved so much? And suddenly I feel that I have tears in my eyes. So if so, let's say that I put myself a 2 out of 5 because I have rumination. I have those obsessive thoughts coming back if I'm taking the time to think. So SPIRE, SPIRE, spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional are really 5 dimensions that are very important when you're trying to assess your whole being. And this is an exercise in positive psychology that I always do with my coaching, because I can see also how will I do my session. If suddenly I have a coachee that is 2 out of 5 in physical, I will not ask him too much in terms of the body that I would like to have him worked with. If I see that there is a poor grade in relational, then I'm going to try to focus more about how to really emphasize the communication side. So, and this is something you can do with your coachee, but this is also something you can do to yourself. Ideally, do a diary in order to really have your grades being put somewhere, and look every week. You need to do it once a week in order to see if a grade is persistent. If you see a grade is persistent after 3 weeks, let's say that you have a 2 out of 5 for physical, and you explain why, you need to see the doctor, for example. So those grades are very interesting because it says something about yourself at that time, in order to really work on yourself from a positive psychology point of view.
Thank you for explaining it. It's really fascinating. I'm wondering, when your clients do come to you, are they aware of your work with the SPIRE model and with theater and drama? I know that you said that they really actively seek you out. So are they in the theater world? Can you speak a little bit to who your clientele tends to be?
Aha. Well, they're absolutely not in the theater world. I have clients that will be more C-suite, CEOs, ambassadors, and they are here because they have a conscious of the importance of their image also. And so this is the image that give them conscious that, oh, you know what? I should get the non-comfort zone to dare to work on staging myself. And this notion of trying to better understand what do others see of myself. I had one client, I'm going to give you a funny anecdote. I had a client who came and says, could you help me to look agreeable and nice? I looked at him and said, well, why do you say that? I said, well, each time that I'm doing an agreement or signing a contract, people want to sign with me, but they looked at my face and I don't know what they see, but they see that I'm maybe afraid because I don't have a poker face. You know, I cannot lie with my face. I'm very readable. So they see maybe fear and they said, well, no, finally, we don't want to sign. So can you teach me how to become poker face? And that's very interesting because, of course, I don't teach them this, but I'm working with some wonderful techniques as well from a professor who is named Paul Ekman, Ekman, Paul Ekman. He mapped the entire face and all the muscle in your face in order to understand how emotions are understood, to the point of becoming Mr. Lying Detector. And if you like Netflix series, there is a series that is dedicated to him that is called Lie to Me series. And so he did a beautiful website called Atlas of Emotions together with the Dalai Lama that explained very well the emotions. But what I like with Paul Ekman is, especially for people who come for facial readiness, is that he's going to explain that if the face is too stiff and is not readable, the other people will be more, frightened than if the face is readable. So for this person who came asking me to teach them poker face, I teach them better than poker face. I teach them authenticity. What is to be authentic when you're on stage? And authenticity is not being natural. Because I had another coachee who came one day, a CEO, and said, Guila, each time that I'm talking about the annual budget, I'm sitting on the table looking cool and telling them, don't worry, we're going to still have $1 billion this year. And they hate that. And he says, I don't know why they hate that. I'm natural. This is the way I am. And my answer is, well, mister, people don't want to see you in pajama. People don't want to see natural. They want to see authenticity. Authenticity is, how can I check that the other is not lying? For this, you need to be aligned. You need to have notion of positive psychology, of whole being, and then working on expressing yourself. But again, out not only of your brain, but out your heart. So this is something very difficult, but is similar than an actor who is trying to be authentic with a role. A role is not the actor. Of course, if you take Shakespeare, Hamlet, the poor, let's say, Nicholas, who is playing Hamlet, well, he is not Hamlet, but he will try to find, once he learned the thing by heart, once he understands the posture of the director, he will try to find the space of authenticity in order for when he will interpret Hamlet, people will feel that there is the presence of a real body, a real soul that is what we are calling embodying Hamlet. And this is exactly what we are looking for when we are dealing with executives.
That's so fascinating, especially since your clients come with fears or things that they're not really comfortable with. And the SPIRE model, you can fine tune and figure out where are those areas where they're not quite as strong and apply a positive psychology approach to bringing out the strengths and fortifying that. But you're helping them with this approach to theater of, rehearsing, and life is the stage of making it, giving them permission to find out how that they can become comfortable. They can bring that authenticity. And even if it doesn't feel quite natural for them to do these things, that there is a way to tap into it and they can do it in their own way. So that's so powerful.
Of course, the famous fake it till you make it. And theater is also like this. It's once you understand the posture, once you understand the value of words, once you understand all of the techniques in order not to be destabilized, and you believe in what you're saying, whether you are CEO, ambassador, manager, even if you're still very afraid and you have the imposter syndrome, and even if you think that you will never get there, well, fake it till you make it. This is Amy Cuddy, remember, who used to say that, the great Amy Cuddy, who worked so much on what we are calling the power posture. And I strongly advise you to listen to her TEDx video. Power posture is, how do you bring your body to this level of security that it will affect your brain? Because she was showing that, especially students who are trying to review their notes for an oral exam, looking in the corridor, bowed and afraid, they are giving the signals, hormonally speaking, to their brain to fail. This notion of posture, once you understand the posture, once the body intelligence is here, you will see that, of course, the entire brain will follow.
What I'm hearing right now is the emphasis on how theater as a practice and positive psychology as a practice, they both really encourage an individual to fully take into an account their entire being. So their mind, their body, and their spirit. It's such a freeing thing when someone kind of can get into that place where they feel fully present. And I'm wondering for you, do you have any stories of clients in a moment where maybe they weren't super excited to try something theater based, but it kind of gave them that feeling of pure presence and awareness and bliss in that moment?
I have some anecdotes because I had the chance to work also with, people working in different governments. I'm going to give you an example in France. I'm the only coach who is able to rent the famous Comédie Française. Comédie Française is the oldest theater in France, and this is called the French comedy where Molière used to play. And so when I heard that public sector wanted me to be a coach, so I said, let me rent this place specific because I want, historically speaking, to show those people from the government that they need to embody their role. I remember that I met one of the person I had at that time. And usually what I'm doing is I'm putting them on stage, but really on stage, which means that I turn off the light of the audience. So when the person is coming in the middle of stage and when they have to speak, they don't see the audience, which is really, I would say, the nightmare for some people. And I'm asking them one by one to come in the middle of stage and simply say, hi, my name is, and say their name, and then they leave. And of course, the rest of the people and me, we were taking notes of everything, the way they enter on stage, the way they position themselves, the way they stop to talk or they were talking while walking, the way the hands were moving, the way parasiting, scratching faces appear. And it says so much about the personality that the people were like in awe about how in 3 seconds they already gave so much information to the audience. You don't have a second way to do a first good impression. This is a beautiful quote that I like. And this is true in order to work creating followership. And I always tell people that I'm working with in the public sector or governments, I'm telling them, you think that the challenge is to create trust, but it's to deconstruct mistrust. Because of course they think that when they will talk, they will try to elevate people to a level where they will trust them. Whereas today, especially when you're dealing with politics, you have so much mistrust in the people who are listening to you. And this is the same with executives when you're working with CEOs. Sometimes you have so much mistrust, people who have been lied, people who have been manipulated. So for the person who's speaking, they have to understand that it's not about trust. It's first about showing that I'm in a position that says, I'm at your service. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to hear you. This, you see it from a physical point of view. And I remember, after working with this group, I think 2 years later, I met one of the person that I coached at that time in the group. He recognized me and he became a minister in France. And he says, I remember you. This was the worst coaching I had, but I thank you so much because it was so good at the end.
As I'm wondering a little bit on more of the presence, but then also for individuals, taking it back to you're working with someone on the way that they show up in a room or in a meeting. What are some ways that they can kind of check in with themselves and to know what their presence is doing, what their energy is doing, and how they might be portraying themselves so that they're aware and they're not just, running on autopilot and giving maybe not the best first impression?
Excellent. I would give the key, which is dealing with 5 pillars of communication. When someone wants to present oneself, they need to think about 5 pillars, which are encourage, gesture, eye contact, voice, and silence. Encourage is really the posture. So basically, it's how grounded you are. Because in fact, the first thing that people feel in terms of legitimacy is how a person is able to manage their body in terms of center of gravity. And this is readable just simply by watching how the person is anchored or the person is grounded. You don't need to be too grounded, otherwise you will feel like if you want to possess the audience, or you don't want to be non-grounded. I see a lot of, especially women, who have high heels and sometimes very difficult, so they walk and very, slow and as if they were excusing themselves. This is not what you're trying to find a way. And I like this expression, roots and wings. Roots, because you're anchored, you're grounded, and wings because the top of the body is very relaxed and very smooth. So this is anchorage. The gestures also are very interesting with the famous question, what do I do with my hand? I have so many coaches asking me, what shall I do with my hands? Well, easy. Just forget about them. Stop being completely obsessed with them. And you will see that they will completely move with ease. If you want to see yourself being able to have a beautiful way to use your hands, try to videotape you for 5 minutes talking about a hobby, talking about something you love. It could be walking, watching a movie you like, and you will see whenever you just let it go. And you were saying it, Austin, let it go. You will see that immediately the hands and the posture, and try to remove the sound of this video while you're talking about a hobby and put a professional presentation. And you will be like, whoa, so I didn't know that I had the capacity to communicate. Yes, you have the capacity to communicate. But when you're doing a professional presentation, you're so obsessed with the script. You have the dilemma about how can I follow my script and how can I be also an actor? Well, between the author and the actor have always the last word. So that's something very important. The eye contact, dare to look in the eyes. And when you do a presentation in front of a people, you need not to look more than 2 seconds in the eyes. If you look too long in the eyes of someone, people will look at you, be like, you might have a favorite, you might have someone you prefer. So that's why you need to always be egalitarian in the way you're looking at your audience, and be very careful with people you think who are not looking at you, people who are in the computer in the very back of the room, because on the contrary, they know exactly what you're doing and sometimes they test you. And of course, voice and silence is also something very interesting to listen. Doing silence is a way to shape what you're saying, a little bit like the margin in a page, a written page, okay? So what advice I can give you, again, I feel like video could be a key. I advise you to videotape you this time, not on a hobby, but on a professional presentation, not long, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Once you have this video, I'm asking you to cut the sound off and give yourself a grade from 0 to 5 on the 3 first pillars: anchorage, gesture, and eye contact. So you can estimate, okay, anchorage wise, I was walking, I was moving, so I put myself a 1 out of 5. Okay. Gesture, I didn't do any gesture. I stay stiff. I put myself a 1. Eye contact, because of the video, I didn't look at the camera. I looked down at my notes. I put myself a 2. And then for the 2 last pillar, voice and silence, let's say that you took your phone to videotape yourself, turn your phone down and listen, put the sound on. So you will only listen to yourself, and it will teach you so much about your voice and by the silence, and here too grading yourself between 0 and 5. And you will see you will do amazing progresses.
I'm wondering, and I believe this might be one of our final questions, if not the final question, if for coaches listening in and they are not necessarily very close to the theater world, but they want to incorporate some of your approaches into what they're doing, is there one thing or a simple way that they can start to incorporate that into what they're already doing?
Excellent question. What you need to know is that today in companies, it's not only about KPIs, the famous key profitable indicators, but it's also a lot about key BIs, key behavioral indicators. And in these behaviors that are recommended for a company, it's all about communication, negotiation, emotional intelligence that you will need to integrate, and I would say lively, if you're not very familiar with theater and if you're not comfortable about beginning to demonstrate any routine of theater, I strongly advise you to simply offer small role games. So moments where you will offer the person to rehearse real life. Let's say that, as a coach, you define yourself more as specialist of strategy. Let's say that in the strategy, you are doing the ally strategy methodology. Let's say that the person wants to have someone becoming an ally. Well, offer the person to say, okay, what would you say to this person? Let's try to listen, and let's try maybe to videotape you or just to record you to analyze the way you're talking, trying to understand in your speech if there is anything offensive that the person can see. So what I mean is, even if you think that theater has to be something very dramatic, try to think that theater can be an oral tool that could be very useful for you, offering rehearsing real life with some small role games, trying to use the script parts in order to understand and estimate the value of what the person is saying, asking, is this word correct? Is it what you want the other person to understand? And of course, when it comes to having coaches who have really problem with obstructive behavior, manipulative, passive, aggressive, do not hesitate to have them play the counterpart. Have them play the person they have problem with in order to see what this person would say about yourself. Why do you think they are like it? And it's not only why do you think they are like that? Because you are still making them speak as themselves, but more, let's ask the person, and you will play the person. Let's ask the person, what does he or she thinks about yourself? By working on different embodiments, you will see that the person will have more trust and will be more confident thanks to theater-like technique.
It's sad to see this time go by so quickly. So, to wrap us up, I'd just like to ask, for anyone listening to today, how can people, stay in contact with you or reach out to you after this episode and learn more about your approach combining theater and positive psychology and all the other amazing work that you do?
Well, as I said, I'm not on LinkedIn, I'm not on Instagram, but I am on IOC. So that's something that I will advise people who are listening to go to. And I strongly advise you to go on the UNESCO website. You will see a lot of what I'm doing. I'm on charge of International Women's Rights Day, which has a lot to do with the coaching on women empowerment that I'm doing. I'm also on charge of World Art Day. We all know that Women's Rights Day is March 8th, but World Art Day is April 15th, on how theater can help in terms of coaching and, of course, when it comes to therapy, art therapy. So you will all find that. It's always free. So you all find that on the UNESCO website, and I will be delighted to welcome you in order to join to those different causes.
Thank you so much, Guila. It was incredible to get to speak with you today and learn more about your work, and I appreciate your presence in this conversation also.
Thank you, Austin.
Yeah, thanks for being.
Thank you, Emily. Really, thank you so much to both of you to have me. It has been a privilege, really.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening to this episode of Coaching Revealed, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Coaching Revealed, brought to you by the Institute of Coaching. You can learn more about the Institute on our website at instituteofcoaching.org. You can stay up to date with new episodes of our podcast by liking and following Coaching Revealed. You can also find us on social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X with the handle Institute of Coaching. We also love hearing from our guests, so please reach out to us with thoughts you have on this episode and any questions you have about coaching. Until next time, this is Emily Terrani with Coaching Revealed.